Welcome to PMI's Leading for Business Excellence podcast. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner of PMI, the performance improvement consulting and training firm. This podcast brings inspiring stories from across the globe and from a multitude of different sectors with great leaders, and they share their experience and what business excellence means to them. It was a huge pleasure to talk to Karen Leftley, President of the BQF today. Karen's enthusiasm for business excellence is infectious, and we have a fantastic conversation about change, about transformation. What does continuous improvement culture look like? How do you create it? And how a five-a-side football team can teach us everything we need to know about improvement team selection. Over the last 4 years, Karen has been responsible for reimagining the BQF to work effectively for its members, and the results are fantastic. I do hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Karen. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's really lovely to have you on this Leading for Business Excellence podcast.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you for inviting me on. It's great. It's absolutely great to be here.
So I thought we could just start off, if you could just do an introduction to yourself, just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your career. That would be really great to start with.
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm doing two significant things in my life. I'm the president of the British Quality Foundation, the BQF, which is a non-exec role. But I've also got my own small boutique consultancy business where I predominantly specialise in change management and continuous improvement, project and program management. So that's what I've been doing really for the last 4 years since April 2019. Previous to that, I had the most amazing career at BT.
Mm-hmm.
It spanned nearly 30 years.
Goodness.
And it was just the most wonderful time of my life. I describe it when people ask me, like, what did you do at BT? I never went there to stay forever, and it's funny how you kind of turn around and it's 10 years later, and then 10 years later again. But it's the most amazing organisation because it's just got so many different opportunities.
Yeah.
And that was the love of it, is that I spent my first 10 years in operations, so locally to where I lived. And then I moved into a role where I was asked to be part of a project team to transform the operation that I'd been working part of, which was just such a fabulous opportunity. And I so enjoyed that challenge, having never done anything like that before. I went off and worked for probably 5 or 6 years in a project role. And that became my passion. And change was absolutely happening all over BT. And I took the opportunity from there to basically move into the leadership of change, starting to build and manage teams of people doing business improvement. And I spent the last kind of 10, 15 years of my career in BT working all over the world in nearly all of the different business units within BT, leading change. And I think the biggest passion for me during that period was continuous improvement.
Right.
So really getting into cultural change and helping people to become empowered to actually build the skill sets to transform from within the inside out. So in a nutshell, that's me. And then taking my skills from there into consultancy, which I'm now doing, and also into the world of the BQF.
And the whole continuous improvement piece, it's the holy grail, isn't it? I mean, and you
Yes.
talked about culture.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
probably the question I'm asked most frequently is, how do I
Yes.
build a culture of this? How do I stop it being just a one-stop, one-hit wonder?
Yes.
So
Yes.
if someone was to ask you about that, what would you
Yes.
say? What's that thing that you've really got to do to make it stick?
Yeah, I think for me, there's two things that always strike me, and the two things that I always talk to people about with continuous improvement is that there's absolutely no one way. you have to set some direction. So it's really, really critical that the whole organization is on the journey. And I think you have to set the direction, you have to give people the capability, and then you have to trust people to experiment, have a go, and empower them to do the right thing. Learn very, very quickly. If something doesn't work, try something different. But actually, all the while, this experimentation is teaching people, what works and what doesn't. We all know the best way until we find a better way,
Yeah.
and I think that's a real sticker for me for culture change, is when you've got people sharing. In so many organizations, there's a culture of protection. So I know how to do something brilliantly, and because performance is measured on, my performance is measured on me, why should I share my brilliantness with somebody else? Whereas actually, in a continuous improvement culture, what we want those people to do is actually share the brilliant things that they're doing, so that everybody can
Yes.
move up to that level. And I think that's where you've got a leadership that is encouraging that growth in individuals, that growth in organization, all the while focused on making it faster, better, cheaper, more brilliant for every single customer that walks through the door. I think that's when you can sense that you're starting to make culture change. It was a tipping point, Susanna. One thing I always used to say when I was working deep in the operation to help teams to practice continuous improvement is, when they start off practicing, having a daily huddle to talk about, how did we do yesterday? Are we set up for success today? If not, why not? One of the observations is, do the team still do that when the manager isn't in the room
Yes.
or isn't there for the day? And when a team has started to make this the way they do stuff, where the boss isn't there today, and the team naturally get up,
Yes.
stand around a huddle board and have that conversation, because they're finding so much benefit and so much value
Yeah.
in that time.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of one of the tipping points.
Yes. I mean, you
But I
mentioned
think,
leadership in
it's
that.
critical.
That's
Yeah, yeah,
how do I mean, within the work that you've done, how did you
yeah,
find trying to get all the leadership team on board and really
yeah.
supportive in the way that you've described it
Yeah,
needs to be?
it's a tough one, because we're all busy, and leaders are incredibly busy, and at the end of the day, they are based on their own success. So they've become where they've become who they are based on history, and based on their success. So having the nerve to almost give up a way of working
Mm.
that's worked in the past, is a really, really hard one, and it's a difficult path to tread. My advice to those starting out on a journey like this, where they have, to convince a leadership organization that this is the investment well spent, is to get an early follower. The mad dancing man is a great example of that, isn't it? Where, if anybody's seen the video, whereas what you're trying to do is create followship.
Mm.
And I think if you can make one leader incredibly successful, others will want to follow, and that's how you start to create the movement, and you get everybody moving towards the
Mm.
change.
Mm.
But I think you can, you're not always successful first time round, and you have to balance it very, very carefully with achieving results at the same time. So if
Yes.
you can start to show how the new way of working, the new behavior, starts to change the dynamic, then I think that's really helpful.
Yes, and we call that celebrating success, and we
Yeah,
talk to people
sure.
about you know that's the last
Yes.
bit. Celebrate the success. You've done all the
Yeah.
review. You've implemented all the
Yeah.
changes. You've got something that's really working for you.
Yeah.
Don't just go back to your day job.
No.
Make
No,
sure that
that's right.
everyone knows exactly what
Yeah.
you've achieved.
One of the analogies I always used to use, and people used to smile, but actually it's really, really true, is that I think that very often, if you look at a business and you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you can go and observe and stand back and watch how things work, very often, I used to find that it would be like what we class as a 5-year-old football match. So there'd be something happening and everybody would be chasing the ball.
Mm.
So it's like that in the improvement world. There's a few improvements and everybody's chasing it, rather than playing in position. And I think this is one of the key things that you can help teams to start to think through, is is who is the best equipped person with the right skills to play in that position, and let's allow that person, let's empower them,
Yeah.
let's create the environment where they can be successful. And then you can start to look at, so what problems can the team fix for themselves? And this is one of the things that, teams love as well. They love actually saying, I don't want to walk on by. When I
No.
find a problem, I don't want to walk on by. I'd love to get that fixed for the customer if it's within my control. And so starting to kind of, get people thinking about, so what are the things that we can do ourselves to fix? What are the things that aren't quite, within our scope? Either we need the team to the left or the team to the right to do something different. And then that's where the middle management start to really be able to play their role in starting to build that value stream thinking and start to try and bring people together that can fix the problem, allowing our more senior managers to focus on the 1, 2, 3 big ticket items a year that really do it. And when you see teams do this successfully, I love it, because actually what a senior manager is then saying is, I know that 10% of my plan for this next year will absolutely be nailed by my team who are on the ground doing this every day, because they're the experts and they know how to fix this stuff.
Yes.
And then, it allows my middle management to really focus on some of the midterm stuff that needs to be done, allowing, me as a senior leader maybe to focus on those big strategic things that are going to take my time and energy. So,
and that, you use the analogy of the 5-year-old football team, and I always think about the sort of re-encouraging in people the curiosity and the problem-solving nature that children have. They love a puzzle. They love, how to put a building together. And actually, we almost get out of the habit of problem-solving as adults.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Why? Yeah, I love that, because why when we walk into work, because we all do it at home.
Yes, exactly.
And we walk into work and all of a sudden, we're like, oh, we're not allowed to do that, and it just seems crazy, doesn't it?
Yes.
Whereas there's so much raw talent for solving problems for customers. And I always used to say that, there's not many people in the world that purposefully go to work to do a bad job, is there?
Never.
When you really look at the way that work works, sometimes some of the obstacles that we put in the way, as which we think and intentionally are good things to do, can end up not being particularly helpful when teams can to overcome barriers to solving problems and making performance better for their customers.
Yes, definitely. So I wondered if we could talk a little bit about the BQF, because the BQF have really, over the last few years, flourished. That's, as somebody who...
Thank you.
You're welcome. But, obviously I've known the BQF for a long time, and to see where you are now, and now, I'd really be interested in that journey as a leader to create that change, and what were some of the things that you guys have been working on?
Yes, good question, and a good story to explore. So I'm like you. I've been involved in the BQF for quite some time now, and it was in my role at BT. I was responsible for equipping everybody in the organisation with the skills to play their role in the change. So not sheep dipping everybody through a certain training program, but actually starting to look at how can we give the right skills to the right people. And because it was such a huge scale, I knew that BT was a founding BQF member. We'd been a member right the way through, so never left, which is pretty incredible. There's not many of those around today, even. And I went and met them and started to talk to them about, how can you help me with this enormous challenge that I've got on my hands. And that's where I sort of first became involved. And there was a lot of focus on sort of quality tools and techniques and frameworks and stuff. But really, there was the internal or the external certification program in Lean and Six Sigma. That they were doing at the time. And what I wanted to do was a little bit broader and a little bit wider than that. So I sort of said to them, can I get inside this with you and start to help show you what really is happening in our business, and what would be, brilliantly helpful to me as a leader of change. And a leader of that profession inside my business as well. At the time, I think we had 6,000 people in BT that had a professional change role.
Right.
So either a project manager, a business improvement person, a change manager, all of those kinds of roles. So BQF, were very open to it. And over the course of probably 4 or 5 years, we took that whole certification program inside of BT. And what I did with it inside of BT was developed it quite a bit and then took it back. So giving back to the BQF as the organisation. During that time, I think they could see that I was quite passionate about the whole topic of change and continuous improvement and all things sort of improvement focus. So they asked me to join the board of non-exec directors, which I did, and that was back in 2016, and kind of went to my first awards ceremony and kind of got more embedded with what they were doing. And then forward fast a little bit, it came to 2019 when I was leaving BT. I kind of went to see David Callaghan, who was the president of the BQF at the time, having I think he'd been in tenure around about 10, 11 years, done phenomenal job. And I said, I've got a bit of sad news, really. I'm leaving BT, so for BQF, it means that we're going to have to find somebody else to take over the relationship, which I will obviously do. But I probably need to resign as part of the board. And he said, well, actually, there's something I wanted to ask you. Is that I feel that your skill set would be brilliantly utilised if you would step up and take over as president. And I was like, was he talking to me? So confidence,
Yes.
not always at the forefront of everything. I was like, oh my God, I really couldn't see that was coming, and I couldn't see myself in that position. But I accepted the challenge, and he said, I think what needs doing with BQF and how it could be of such value to organisations moving forward. So I came out of BT. I had about a year where I was working with the team and starting to think about how we could transition and what we could do. And sadly, COVID came along, so we had a very, very tough couple of years, being a not-for-profit member organisation, having to go to a completely virtual model of events, whereas all events have been based sort of in central London. But I think that was good timing. So we kind of created a virtual events program, and then sort of at the back end of COVID, I ran a virtual awards because we were in the middle of an awards program and couldn't get face to face. And so rather than leave it, we decided that people wanted to know the outcomes.
Yes.
So we managed to persuade BT to host that at the BT Tower, which was, not in any way, shape or form, like the normal event. But we were able to do that, for virtually, no cost because we aren't, it was just a really, really tough time. But coming out of the back of the virtual awards, I decided that I wanted to get the members together to start looking at the value proposition for BQF going forward. And I had a brilliant set of members that jumped on board, and we worked all the way through January and February to look at all of the award categories, and we reimagined the whole award process. So we came out of COVID in a position where we set ourselves a goal that we were going to have a face-to-face awards the following February,
right.
To which we did, and we came back, really, really strong. And I think that was the catalyst for me of understanding that there was a group of people that still really, really valued this organisation, which brought together people. I think we've reimagined absolutely every single nook and cranny of it now. We have things like book club where we bring members together to share. We have, live events that members host. We are networking, and it's like a bit of a date club as well. We put people together.
Okay.
So, in our member conversations, we're using a collaboration tool through Mural with our member conversations now. So our member conversations are now all visual, which they didn't used to be. And they're regular, so they're as regular as members want them. But through that, we're able to piece together that actually the value of BQF is the people that belong, and actually connecting people, and then having the recognition program of certification is just then, starting on that journey of people are learning, then people are applying the skills and the knowledge, and then they're able to get certifications as evidence that they are there's practical application going on and people are achieving outcomes and results. And then we have the amazing external recognition of the awards program, where people are able to get nominations in for the awards. And the whole awards program is just a different kettle of fish altogether of how that's evolved and developed this last 2 years. Really is just, I'm so proud of it. I think the team have done an amazing job.
Yes,
They really have.
I mean, we're lucky enough to have a number of clients who've entered awards, and the feedback from them has been that the whole process has been excellent for them. They've really got a lot out of it themselves, and got a lot out from working with, presenting to the judges and so on.
Yes, and I think that's where we've come from and to. I think it's it's a massive undertaking. I think we're looking back. We were looking at some numbers from, I think, 2016. We had 37 entries to the UK Excellence Awards. This year we've had in excess of 170.
Wow. Yeah.
So the scale has gone through the roof. And like a lot of other awards that go on, we don't just read the paper submissions. We have, this year we've had over 70 members of the jury. So every team that makes it through to the judges' rounds, we have some that don't from the paper sifting, from the reading through. We have some that don't meet the criteria into the judging round. But into the judging rounds, I think we've seen 130 teams of people, which has meant that 470 people have met the jury panels, and they all get an opportunity to come and present their case, and then they have a Q&A, and then the jury panel will meet and see all the other applicants during that course of that day. So it's a huge investment in time. And the whole jury infrastructure is made up of our members and experts in business, our partners, and people that we know who come and do talks and events for us, who are absolute expert in their field. And they give up their time and energy and effort to do that. We've had over 70 jury members this year. So the scale of this thing has gone through the roof. And we are already, we've sold out of capacity for the finals, ceremony, which is first time ever. Wonderful. We've sold out of capacity, and we've had to go back to the hotel, and we've had to find more capacity to get more people in the room. And I think that's just, that just tells a million stories, doesn't it, of how well it's going this year, and how people are. And I love what you say about loving the process. That's the feedback that we're getting, even if people don't make the finals, even if people don't win. Actually, the process of entering has taught people so much. And it doesn't stop there.
No. And I think the whole, certainly from the clients that I've spoken to, they've worked as a team to to enter, and they've worked as a team to go in front of the panel of judges, and they've learned a lot from that themselves in terms of looking back and going, actually, we've done really well with this, in terms of what they have achieved to even be able to present that.
Absolutely. And then the showcases start. So, if once we get the winners, and nobody knows the winners till the night, and then actually once we get the winners, at the back of that, there'll be a showcase for every winning team to talk through what they've done, so that everybody can learn. And this is what it's about. It's about sharing learning, and sharing the things that don't work as much as sometimes the things that do work, because actually you learn so much more from the oopsie bootsies, don't you, than you do from the things that go really, really, really well. So the whole process is just, I think, an incredibly, we should be incredibly proud as BQF. And to think that there's only there's me and 3 other part-time staff at BQF, and I'm a volunteer. I don't actually work there, but but there's 3 part-time staff, and they do the awards on top of their day job, which I think is amazing. Just incredible. Yeah.
And out of interest, I mean, BQF, British. Is it a British audience that enter the awards, or do you find you've got international reach?
Yeah, we've got international reach now, and we have had for quite a few years. So it's not something that's new this year. But we welcome anybody from anywhere if they're practicing excellence in anything that they do. And it's not just about the traditional sort of Lean Six Sigma project management
Yes.
kind of projects. What it's taught me, and it's certainly this is one of the lessons about reimagining BQF is that businesses now think about excellence as being oh so much wider than business performance. It's about diversity and inclusion. It's about mental health and well-being. It's about safety and the way that we govern our businesses. It's about people and their development. It's about our customer experience. It's about the way we collaborate along the supply chain. It's about environmental sustainability.
Yes.
There is so much more to this.
Yes.
Than simply being able to transform a metric or a process.
Yes. Or just that quality is more than just
Yes,
sort of ticking the box as it leaves sight. It is
absolutely.
absolutely about
Yes.
everything we do.
Yes, it's about, and there's a lot of our awards now are about the embedding, what we were talking about earlier about embedding this excellence into the way that we do things, the culture, the DNA of the business. That's what we're looking for. It's as much about the how the teams do it and how they're sustaining it, not just about the what that they've done or delivered. So yeah.
And I was in. I mean, you mentioned about the sort of extension of things like book club and networking events.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, for anyone listening, I'm a great example of how this works. I've had two
Yes.
previous guests on this podcast, both as a result of coming to the BQF Excellence Day. So,
Fabulous.
Dr. Nicola Millard from BT,
Yeah. Yeah.
wonderful to meet,
Amazing woman.
incredible
Amazing
woman.
woman.
Yes,
I know.
and getting the chance to interview her on this was
Yeah.
fantastic. And then John Manning,
Oh,
so he's come
amazing.
and done some work with us.
Inspirational.
Yes, on
John is just inspirational.
yeah, wonderful. So that's been really terrific. And so
Yeah.
you're finding that the members are all now starting to collaborate with each other, which I think is a
Oh,
real shift.
it's brilliant. And you know what? When we get to events, they now all know each other.
Yes.
And I think this is what is so brilliant is that, we're coming together at events and we're still doing a lot of virtual, meetings and events. But actually, the whole program of like the awards, that's as much about everybody coming together to celebrate and recognize, the excellence in everybody as much as it is about winning. And there'll be a lot of people there that are really looking forward to seeing each other again. And I think that's what it is. And my personal advice to a lot of the people that I talk to about networking, and I think that we're very we can sometimes get very focused on our jobs and in our current roles, and we forget about investing in our network. And when things is bobbing along and it's all stable life and it's all lovely, it's great, and you don't really need your network that much externally, and then all of a sudden something changes. And if you haven't got a good network out there that because honestly they just wrap themselves around you,
Yes.
and all of a sudden you've got this amazing support infrastructure around you from your network. And if you've got to spend time building that again, it's quite hard work.
Yeah.
Whereas if you invest in that all the time when you need them,
Yes.
it's give and take, isn't it? They're there for
It is
you.
give and take, absolutely. Yeah. And I think
And
that word invest is important, isn't it? Because
yeah.
anyone who is networking only for themselves and not thinking about, and what can I give back to my network? How can
Yeah.
I help? Then they're not going to be necessarily particularly successful, because it's just like having a friend, isn't it? If it's a one-way
Yes,
conversation, it's got to be a two-way
that's right.
conversation. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I was interested. I mean, you talked really beautifully about the sort of spread of excellence throughout organizations now.
Yeah.
And obviously the numbers that you were quoting about how many more people have entered the awards compared
Yeah.
to a few years ago and so on,
Yeah.
that's got obviously as a result of the great work that BQF have done. But I wondered
Yeah.
whether you've got any sense of, do you feel that organizations generally are more on the excellence journey, that they're getting it?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I think that what I think this is something that I felt very strongly about myself, even in the role when I was in BT, is I think that you have to respect that people do it differently. So I think people are on the excellence journey, but there's not one way that fits. And I think that we have to be agnostic of methodology. I think we have to respect agnostic of framework, and we have to allow people to come to the party with their story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the power in the BQF, I believe now, and why we are finding that we are tapping into a much wider and deeper set of relationships, is because we're allowing, or we're not allowing, it's we're respecting that each organization has its own way.
Mm-hmm.
For some organizations, they won't have the luxury of having external help in. It will be their own staff, and their own people have to reimagine their own business, because that's the industry that they're in. They're not big enough or whatever to get a big consulting partner in to come help. Some organizations will have a big consulting partner come in and help them, and they will have their own methodology and their own way of doing things. And then another organization will do something different around another set of key principles, and none of it is, it's all the right way. It's whatever is the way that works for you and your business. And I think it's that respect that we've had for knowing that we set a set of principles around having a great customer experience, having excellence in the way that you have a diverse organization, and that you apply a quality to everything that you do, and that you have a wonderful culture of health and safety. And we're saying these are the principles. How you deliver those, how you get there, the journey and the route that you take is the fascinating thing, because
Yes.
that's where you learn.
Yes.
And yes, you may not be able to. I mean, the hardest part of judging is that sometimes we can't stack one up against the other, because it's like so many times I've joined every single end of jury panel this year to meet with the judges to say, tell me about what have you seen today. And they're like, oh my lord, we've got an apple and a pear.
Yes.
It is so hard to we've got a multi-million pound organization, and then we've got a family run
Yes.
business.
Yes.
But actually that's the love of it, isn't it, that we can still learn from a family run business,
Indeed.
and we can still they can still be doing and taking part in the excellence agenda. They don't have to afford to bring in a certain framework or a certain governance or a certain capability and a certain training program. It's we just love, if you've got a good change story to tell, please come tell it,
Yes. Yes.
because we love to hear it.
But I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I feel like there are some indicators always, though, aren't there, that remain
Yes.
common.
Yes, there
What
are.
would you say those might be?
So I think that it's things like the metrics that they use, so the outcomes that they achieve. I think there's always feedback from customers. There's feedback from the people themselves in the organisation. There's those sort of indicators that tell you loads of things. And actually, I think as well, when you look at the applications that come in, sometimes you then meet the team, and it's a completely and utterly, you're like, oh my God, they've blown me away.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Yes.
And it's the passion,
Yes.
and the passion for what they do. And so I think that making sure that we see every single team that comes through into the awards is gold dust, because I think some of the stuff you can't tell from PowerPoint presentations and written, and the written word,
No,
the written entry
indeed.
form.
Indeed, yes.
But I think, yeah.
And yes, I think you were talking about the sort of right at the beginning about people who, even when the manager isn't there, they still have their huddle.
Yes.
And it's when you meet
Yes.
those people, it almost bursts out of them, doesn't it? The
It does.
enthusiasm
It
for the work they
does.
do, which
Yes, it
is,
does.
and
Yes,
it
it
makes you
does.
think we should all be, we all want some of that.
Yeah.
We should all be
Yeah.
working that way to get that sense of joy in our
And
work.
I think, Susanna, the jury panels love it. I hear it so often, is when they bring a range of people onto the onto the
Yes.
jury's judging sessions. So when we see a leader and a frontline person and perhaps somebody from the finance community
Yes.
and somebody else, so we see it, and then sometimes that somebody will even bring on a customer or something, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is incredible. So you
Yes.
start to see that whole sort of mix of people. That's when it's really
Yeah.
brilliant.
I mean, Karen, you're a really inspiring person to talk to. But where do you get your inspiration from? So, in your career, has there been anyone who's been a sort of significant influence on you?
Yeah, yeah. I think that I kind of energy wise, I think I get energy from other
Hmm.
people. I know that. So I'm not very good at working alone. I work really well with a team. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the role that I play with the BQF, is because actually as a consultant, it can be quite a lonely life, and you're fairly much on your own. And so then working with the BQF, that gives me a sense of team and a sense of purpose. I think from a leadership perspective, I've had some very different leadership styles over the years, and I think the some of the best leaders that I've had are the ones who have encouraged me to be
Hmm.
me. So I had, and I very often, it's funny, isn't it, how you tend to, I don't seem to ever end up working for anybody who's kind of got a mirror image of me. I don't know whether this is not no, nobody around. But I always seem to fill a gap, find the with a leader, and it's somebody who um, allows me to be me and bring my personality to the table, and values me for the skills that I have, rather than be a mirror
Mm.
image of them. And I know at one point in BT, I went to work in central finance, and it was so scary. The continuous improvement program was moving from one business unit. We'd covered about 19,000 people in this one business unit, and it had gone really well. And I should have been really proud, but it moved into a central PAM BT program. So we then had the remit to go over 105,000 people,
Wow.
which was fantastic,
Mm.
scary. But I ended up having to go and work in central finance, because that was where it was being run from. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm not going to last, because I don't have a financial bone in my body. And they're not going to value how I do things, and the kind of remit that I bring to the party. And actually, it was just one of the best 4 years I've had in my career. I absolutely loved it, because I was amongst people who had never really had anybody like me in their team before. In the leadership team, I brought a very different
Yes.
dynamic, but it was valued.
Mm.
So that was phenomenal. And in that move, I had a mentor at the time who I remember, I never forget calling on it was a Friday afternoon. He was at an offsite, and I rang up and I was like, "Help! I'm moving to finance, and what am I going to do? I'm not going to survive here." And he just said, "Be you." Be you, because your results will deliver. They will deliver, and they did. And you just have to trust. And I think the confidence that I've gained, almost, from that period, and then moving and leaving BT, and this whole role that I've played in terms of the BQF, and just getting on with it, rolling my sleeves up and helping the team reimagine
Mm.
it. And it has been such a massive confidence booster. And I wish I had the confidence, way back when. I wish I'd been a bit more braver
Yes.
at times, to be a little bit more me, rather than have to try to fit in.
But sometimes it's just when the
Um,
time is right, isn't
but
it? Sometimes,
that's like, yeah, it's kind of, yeah. So that's probably been the most influential. And then really, I suppose the BQF board, having that role of president, in terms of being responsible for the BQF board. And the BQF board, are made up of some incredibly senior and talented
Mm.
people that have got way bigger jobs than or have had, the careers that they've had are incredible. And having them be supportive of me doing what I'm
Yeah.
doing, I mean, that's just, I have to pinch myself sometimes that they trust me to lead the organisation, because they do, and I have their heartfelt trust. They just show up everywhere at everything, and their commitment is just amazing, and I love them all. And I wouldn't be who I am now 3 years into BQF without their trust and without their without their support. And again, it's been a role of, trust me guys, I think I know what I'm doing. It's going to feel a bit different, and the organisation will end up feeling a bit different, but come with me. And and they have. And I just hope, this year at the awards, we really do them all proud, because they've stuck with the organisation through this last 3 years, which has been quite bumpy with kind of the pandemic and stuff. And I think we're well out of the other side of it now. And it's it's going great.
It's a great story as well about that, as you've already described, about that reimagining and going right back to those basics of what do our members need, what do our customers need,
that's right,
people
absolutely.
need.
And I feel strongly, Susanna, about like the BQF is, because of the kind of organisation it is, that it's owned by its members, but its members are fluid. So and I feel that we as an exec committee, and we as member organisations as well, we only own it for a moment in time. We are custodians of it for whilst we are part of it, but we owe it to the next generation of our profession to make sure that we treasure it, and that we develop it, and that we keep it, and that we're able to have something as a legacy that we pass on, that they can use and get as much value out of as hopefully those that are involved in the here and now have got out of it. Because it would be great, wouldn't it? It's 30th anniversary this year, the Home of UK Excellence. Wouldn't it be fantastic in 30 years' time if they were celebrating the way that we are this year, and it's still adding value for people.
Absolutely. And so, given everything that you talked about, given the experiences that you've had at BT, the work that you've done with the BQF, and all those great people you've had the opportunity to meet and work with, if somebody came to you and asked you for advice, what makes a great leader, what would you say to that?
I think making a great leader is about enabling people to be the very best version of themselves, really, and encouraging them to do what makes them brilliant, and supporting them, being there when they need help and support, but allowing them the time, space, and capacity to learn, to make mistakes, to fail fast, but to experiment. There's nothing worse, is there, than having working for someone that won't allow you to experiment and to try and change things and evolve things and improve things. And I think that's what makes a great leader, is being there and giving that support, listening and being able to understand, but give you the support that you need when you need it.
Definitely. And that time and space,
Yes.
Don't put people on a treadmill forever without that opportunity. Yes, I think that's a brilliant point. Karen, I could spend the rest of today having this conversation with you, because it's so enjoyable and there's so much to talk about. It's been fantastic having you with me today. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
For anybody who isn't familiar with the BQF, go online, look them up. And get connected. I would highly recommend them.
Yes.
And we're all looking forward to the awards in October.
I was going to say, I'm going to see you at the awards. So I look forward to that immensely. And I hope you have a fantastic evening with all your clients and colleagues that you're bringing along. I hope it's truly a brilliant recognition and celebration of everything that you've been doing with them.
And that's how it feels. It does feel like that. Good. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you, Susanna.
You.
Bye.
What a brilliant episode, Leading for Business Excellence with Karen Leftley. I hope you feel as motivated and inspired as I do. If you'd like to know any more about how you can develop your career in business excellence and transform your organisation, please do drop me a line, team@pmi.co.uk. I'd love to hear from you.